So let's practice representing integer addition in some different ways. In fact, I'm going to write integer addition at the top of this so that we can focus on just addition for right now. All right, so I'm going to draw on my number line an expression, and I want to see if we can figure out what it is. Okay, so I am going to start here and go over there. So then what expression could this represent? I'm starting at -5 and ending at -9 if we use addition. So first I'm going to write down where I started. I started at -5. And then what did I add to get to -9? I added a -4. So a -5 plus a -4 would give me a -9. You could think about that as when I add a negative number to a negative number, it just becomes more negative, right? And then let's write this as an equation. We could write -5 plus -4 equals -9. All right, here's another one. Try out this one. How could I use addition to go from -3 to +1? So I'm going to count the squares here, or I'm going to count the number of intervals between -3 and 1. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's 4 intervals there that each represent one whole that are between -3 and 1. So that means I'm adding 4. I can say -3 plus 4 equals 1. But wait, I've actually gotten ahead of myself here. This equals 1 doesn't belong here with an expression, because once I write an equal sign, that's no longer an expression anymore. It's an equation. So -3 plus 4 is my expression. -3 plus 4 equals equals 1, +1, not negative, is my equation. All right, here's another one. Tell you what, this time I'm going to give you the expression, and then you give me the equation and the model. All right, 4 plus -6. Pause the video and give it a try. Give me the model and give me the equation. All right, so you've hit play again, so you must be ready to talk about it. So first I'm going to start at 4, and then I'm going to add -6. So let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I'm going to add -6. It's taking me 6 spaces to the left, and I'll end up over here at -2. All right, so there's my model. So 4 plus -6 equals -2. Let's write that equation. 4 plus -6 equals -2. All right, so let's talk about some rules for adding integers, some generalizations that we can make. We noticed that when we had -5 plus -4, that was equal to -9. So we really just added the 5 and the 4 together. We found the sum of those, and that was equal to 9, but our value, our answer to this is -9 because both the 5 and the 4 are negative. So -5 plus -4 was -9. When our signs were different though, like when we had -3 plus 4, that was equal to +1. And when we had 4 plus -6, that was equal to -2. So what's going on here is a little bit different. If I add 4 plus 6, I get 10. Well, that's not what happened there, right? If I add 3 plus 4, I get 7. So when the signs are different, we don't add the values. Instead, what we're really doing is finding the difference of the two values, right? And then we're taking the sign of the value that has the larger absolute value. So the difference of 3 and 4 is 1. 4 minus 3 is 1, right? And this is a +1 because 4 is positive, and 4 has a larger absolute value than 3. With 4 plus -6, guys, the difference between 4 and 6 is 2, right? So really we're doing 6 minus 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. We found the difference, but our value, our answer here is -2 because 4 has a smaller absolute value than -6. -6 is the value here with the larger absolute value. So since -6 is negative, and it has a larger absolute value, then our answer is going to be a -2. Let's try some other examples. All right, let's try out these and see if this pattern holds true. Let's see, 1 plus 4 is 5. -3 plus -4 is -7. -4 plus -6 is -10. And 4 plus 6 would be +10. And this can be confusing. An easier way to slow down and think about these would be to actually draw a number line, right? So for example, I'm going to draw on the number line, this one right here. I'm going to draw -4 plus -6 equals -10. So I don't need to draw all the numbers. I just need to draw 0 and -4. So I'm starting at -4, right? And then I'm going to add -6 to that. So then where I'm going to end up is going to be more negative than -4. It's going to be -10, right? Okay, that's called an open number line when you don't draw all the values in between. So I'm not going to draw a number line for all of these, but know that you can do that. It's a great tool for figuring it out. Now let's look at where the signs are different. -5 plus 4 is going to be -1. 5 plus -4 will be +1. And -10 plus 12 will be +2. Okay, so let's make some generalizations here. When we had integers that we were adding and they had the same sign, what we were doing was adding the values and keeping the sign that they originally had. So let's write that down. When adding integers with the same sign, we're going to find the sum of the values. We're going to add, and the sign will not change. So if both of the values were negative, if both of the add-ins were negative, then the sum will also be negative. If both of the add-ins were positive, then the sum will also be positive. So the sum, its sign is going to match the sign of the add-ins. Now let's talk about subtraction. So to make this a little bit clearer, I'm going to highlight the add-in with the larger absolute value in each of these cases. So here 4 has a bigger absolute value than -3. -6 has a bigger absolute value than 4. -5 has a bigger absolute value than 4. 5 has an absolute value that is larger than the absolute value of -4. And then here 12 has the bigger absolute value of 12 and -10. So what we're really doing here when we're adding add-ins with different signs is we are really subtracting, right? We're really finding the difference. So the difference of 4 and 3 is 1. The difference of 6 and 4 is 2. The difference of 5 and 4 is 1. And the difference of 12 and 10 is 2. And then we are keeping the sign of the add-in with the larger absolute value. So here we're not finding the sum, we're finding the difference. And then once we've subtracted, we're keeping the sign of the value with the larger absolute value. So what I want you to imagine when you're adding integers with the same sign is that you have two teams that join forces and form one great big team, all with the same sign. So if you have two negative add-ins, two negative values that you're adding together, then they're going to come together and they're going to make one negative number with a larger absolute value, right? So the two negatives are just going to form a team that's even more negative than what they started with. If you have two positive values that come together, they're going to make a team that's even more positive than what they started with. So the negatives will make negatives and the positives will make positives when you're adding values with the same sign. When you're adding values with different signs, I want you to imagine two opposing forces coming together. And the one that has the larger absolute value is the winner. The one with the larger absolute value is the one that gets to decide which sign we're going to use. And in fact, when the signs are different, we're not really adding, we're really finding the difference of the two add-ins. Then, as we said before, we're keeping the sign of the value with the larger absolute value. The one that's furthest from 0 is the winner.